Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome to the nicest level of the RPG Cave. It's the 69th level of the RPG Cave. I am one of your hosts, the level 99 human archmage Ryan Turford, and I'm joined, as always, by the level 99 elf medic, Mr. Garret Bland. Garret, how are you doing this lovely, lovely Monday evening? You know, we're, week one into the busiest game season of the year. So how are you doing? How are you coping, my friend?
I'm doing fine. I'm having a blast with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Wearing my Vita shirt, so I'm doing good, man. Pretty chill.
Nice.
Just What about you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. You know, it's getting warmer here in Ontario. It's like 17 degrees outside, where it was snowing like a week ago. So just
interesting.
Things have been kind of weird here, kind of lately. But
17 degrees sounds way too cold. 17 degrees 17 Fahrenheit, Celsius. Man.
Celsius.
Oh, okay. Yes, that is actually probably on the higher end.
That's pretty close to like 70, 75 degrees kind of thing.
Yeah. That's what I normally get in San Francisco. Yeah. It's just like every day. It's just so mild.
It's
kind of crazy. It's actually phenomenal how much of a microclimate it is here.
I still can't believe that that's actually a thing, Garret. But before we get into the show, Garret, I want to address something, because every time someone points out a franchise we haven't talked about before, played before, especially between the two of us, if we both haven't played it, I always like to at least talk about it a little bit on the show. So we got a tweet earlier today from West3DP on Twitter, who saw this cool, Earthbound, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood kind of reference, where it was like this YouTube video of like the intro to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but instead of Mr. Rogers, it was, Earthbound characters instead. And in the tweet he was mentioning, we need to get Garret playing Earthbound. To which your response was, no, I haven't played it yet. But I had to actually mention in the tweet as well, because he had tagged me in it being like, get Garret to play Earthbound. But I don't know, I just don't really love Earthbound that much. So the reason I wanted to bring this up, Garret, is because we're just probably never going to do like an Earthbound or a Mother episode, and I kind of just wanted to highlight that a little bit here, just because I have played Earthbound before, but I just don't really like Earthbound at all. Like it's kind of like it's like the weirdness of Undertale, but it's too weird for me. Like I just can't get into the vibe of that game or the feel. Like Undertale I felt like just nailed the formula that a game like Earthbound is going for, where just so much more. So for that reason, I don't think we'll ever go kind of in depth with it, Garret. But I just thought it was funny, because it's more like just trying to throw another game on Garrett's backlog, and I'm just like, dude, Garrett's got like 30 RPGs I keep giving him. Every time he keeps coming to the show, he just gets like 5 more RPGs he needs to play.
So true. The thing is, it's all these old role-playing games I have never played before. I know they're classic, but trying to get into them now, I can't. I have games I'm playing right now, and then I actually know probably the next 4 or 5 games I want to play. That will carry me through the rest of the year. And then I got Fire Emblem Engage in January. So it's like it's very hard for me to like go to a classic RPG, go through it. It's hard for me with Golden Sun. I understand it's people's like top favorite game. I get it. And I think it's just a mixture of like they played it, as a younger age, or when they had time to like play this game, and that grew memories with them. Of course, they remind themselves of Golden Sun being a really great game because it's associated with those nostalgia memories. I get it too. I get a lot of that feeling with older games as well when I play. But it's just hard to go back to these role-playing games for me, just because I rather play other games that are current right now, and that I would like to be in the conversation with other people that play the current games. But yeah, I mean, Earthbound, it's not out of the scope. It's just, it's really out of the scope right now. I got so many RPGs.
That's just one of the reasons why I'm not, breathing down your neck to finally finish, Final Fantasy VII Classic, or, some of these other games too, because I know that's just not your, priority, and that's okay. Like, not everyone needs to have like old games as a priority. Like, I just love playing old games, not just because I grew up with some of the games I'm playing, but I like to experience like new older games that I've never played before, because like an old game that came out in the 80s that I've never played before is a new game to me, or at least that's the way I look at it. And I love kind of like old school game design and stuff like that too. But I understand that, again, that's not for everyone. Or again, if you're not feeling an old game, like why would you force yourself to play it, right? So I totally get that sentiment with Golden design.
The one thing that really gets me is like when I get into an old, like if I want to get into an older RPG, I think of 100 of them. Right. I think of so many of them, I get paralysis. Like I don't know what to start, and I'm in Golden Sun right now, and that's kind of like the peak right now. As when I'm in the mood, I will play that.
Yeah.
When I'm not in the mood, I will play Mario plus Rabbids or whatever other game. So
whatever is on the docket, because again, it's good that you kind of planned out your holidays at least a little bit, because especially because you don't have a ton of time to play games and stuff like that too. Whereas I end up usually having like a mountain of time on my hands to play games. But so then I'm less, stringent on the planning. Although I do know, like, speaking of RPGs, I will be playing, Star Ocean when it comes out later this week.
Nice.
I'm the person.
Star Ocean.
I'm going to be the one person at Carpool Gaming who plays that game.
You're going to be the one person in general. That's
true.
This game.
I've been constantly referencing. I'm hopping on the grenade, the Star Ocean grenade on this one, because I need to know. I need to know because it'll either be in one of two camps. It'll either be really bad or it'll be really good, and I need to know which one it's going to be. So
I've looked at the trailer, like the final story trailer of this game. It looks not. It looks low B, high C tier. Let's just say that. Like even the animations, just looking, I was like, this is gonna be not. Don't expect it to be high praise, but I'm sure you know that.
I played the demo, because there's a demo out for it, and the visuals, are on. Your description was definitely on point with the visuals for that game. It doesn't look great, but the gameplay I actually found was pretty fun. Like I kind of like the combat loop for it, so. That's why I'm actually excited to check it out. Plus, I like the Star Ocean games, and Tri-Ace as well. Like, so I want to support them a little bit and at least try it out. And again, it's to be like the big RPG this fall, because we really don't have any other RPGs, besides Mario plus Rabbids, which came out this week, and Pokemon. Like that's pretty much it on RPGs coming out later. Or I guess I keep forgetting about Tactics Ogre, but that's sneaking up on us too. And then I guess Crisis Core is out in December too, so I guess that counts too. Anyways,
I guess so. But anyways,
we should probably clear the dungeon because we're like 10 minutes into the show, we haven't even started talking about the topic this week. So folks at home, if you want to support the show, there's a number of awesome ways to do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right now over at youtube.com/carpoolgaming, or if you're watching the video on demand later, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already, and then ding, 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 ring that bell to be notified whenever we put up new videos like We the GamerCast earlier this week with Robby Bobby Miller. Shout out to Robby Bobby Miller in the chat, by the way. It was actually a really good episode, so go ahead and check out his interview with Sean Capri over on the YouTube channel. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to subscribe to us there, and don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to help the show get discovered and help bring more people into the cave with us. Also, if you want the show a little bit early, or if you want some of our exclusive content like Sweet Hangs, which we released a new episode of on Monday, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/carpoolgaming. Throw a little tip in the little tip jar and out comes content. Also, we have a merch store. If you want an RPG Cave t-shirt or another Carpool Gaming branded t-shirt, head on over there, bit.ly/CPG merch. And then last but not least, Garrett, Extra Life is happening next weekend. It's actually happening next week. I misspoke when I said this. It was happening, next week. Last week.
Okay.
I got tripped up because for whatever reason, when we were recording last week, Garrett, I thought Halloween was this week, when obviously it's not. Halloween's actually next week.
We're a little too far forward here. All right, we're about to get into it.
Exactly. So you can definitely check us out, youtube.com/carpoolgaming. We have a donation link if you want to donate. We have some amazing prizes, including a God of War Ragnarok Collector's Edition, a Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker Collector's Box, which is, super rare. We've also got, Game Pass codes to give away, a copy of God of War Ragnarok, all kinds of crazy stuff. So head on over to our Extra Life page.
Man, I want to donate now. Where do I go? Do I go to Extra Life?
Carpool I gotta grab the link. It's like Save the Carpool Trophy, I think is what it's called. But
okay. You can go to Phoenix Overdrive as well. And just go to that website.
Go to the
you'll find us.
You'll find us there. But Anyways, Garrett, with all that out of the way, with all that hoopla all done, it's time to read from the sacred texts, because it is time to talk about an interesting topic that I came up with kind of out of nowhere this week. Of course, as you do, Garrett, I was thinking in the shower about Sonic Chronicle: The Dark Brotherhood, and think about
as we always do, as everyone always does. Yes.
And I was thinking to myself, hey, what other non-RPG series would make great RPGs? I thought that would be a cool topic for this week's show. So we asked that exact question. So Garrett and I came up with a list of games. We didn't really come up with an exact number, so we're just going to talk about some of them. I've also got some honorable mentions on top of that. And then we also polled the community as well. So thank you everyone who submitted what franchises you would love to see. And that's going to be tonight's show, Garrett. So I've talked a lot. Normally, I would say I'll go first because I've got 5 games. But I know you've got the shorter list, but I'm going to let you go first, Garrett, so I can take a drink of water. So give me your first game. Yes. What do you want to see become an RPG series that isn't an RPG series already?
Sounds good. Now drink your water. Yes, hydrate. Thinking about this question, I realized a lot of series I come to enjoy, like video games in general, their RPGs are very close to RPGs. And so this actually took me a little bit outside the box. It's like, okay, what games I really do enjoy that are like totally out of bounds, like non-RPGs that I would like to see as role-playing games. And I remember having this question on Nintendo Shack. Not this specific question, but this answer applies to this question as well. It's like, what kind of other Nintendo franchise, or what Nintendo franchise do you want to make a different genre, like what kind of spin? And this is a brilliant, like, Nintendo needs to approve this multi-million-dollar game development project. I'm sure they would accept this proposal.
Of course, it'll print money, right? They'll just be doing this. They'll have that gif of the guy doing this with the money.
Exactly. Star Fox. And you remember, that little franchise that Nintendo forgot about back in the Wii U days.
Yeah.
Star Fox Zero, we try to forget Star Fox Zero, but I love Star Fox so much. It's been one of my favorite franchises of Nintendo alongside Donkey Kong. I want Monolith or some other studio at Nintendo just grab the corpse of Star Fox and the franchise itself and make a genuine Star Fox role-playing game. And I think that would be so cool, just in the sense of it's a very cool world. It's human and like animal humanoid type of creatures, which is awesome. You can make your own clans, and it's cartoonish. It's fun. I would like it a little bit more like, let's say, in the Mass Effect kind of setting where you have your own character. Maybe it's Fox McCloud. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It would be cool if it's Fox McCloud because he has a lot of backstory with his father and everything. But like have some choices. Who gets into your party? Who doesn't? You can get to pick your starship, customize that starship, and you can go out, have explorations with your crew members, have quest lines. Man, I think of like space and how deep Mass Effect goes, and it would be a perfect setup for Star Fox because I think it has the lore. It really does. It has all the great lore from all the Star Fox games. Now just put it more in an RPG setting. Like I just go to Mass Effect as the blueprint for me because I think that would be perfect for the Star Fox franchise. But anyways, that's my first one. What do you think, Ryan?
That's a good idea. Now, first off, it's for a while there, it sounded very similar to this other game on the GameCube. I don't know if you've heard of this one because I'm sure no one on Nintendo Shack has ever asked about this game before. Star Fox Adventures on the GameCube.
Oh gosh, I tried to forget that one.
AKA Dinosaur Planet, because again, it was originally like just called Dinosaur Planet, and then they just kind of attached the Star Fox IP to it. But so like I imagined in my head for as you were reading that description, we're talking about it like maybe a game like that. But then as you start talking about the choices and the space battle stuff, like then I was like, okay, I'm like really on board with that. That sounds really, really, really cool. My question for you then, is it more like the combat, for example, when you're outside the spaceship, is it more like an action RPG? Yeah. Is it, or what kind of, how are you interacting with this game beyond the space battle stuff from other stuff?
Yeah, It would definitely be more of an action RPG for sure. And like, it would be crew based. So you can like order your crew members to go to certain places and cover an area. I wouldn't think there would be too much action though, outside of the starfighting stuff. It would be more narrative based, more text based, more decision based, let's say, rather than action based. I don't plan it to be the most actiony RPG there is. But it'll maybe have some action if it needs conflict outside of the starship. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, we've never
like
had
it might feel weird if it didn't have combat outside of it, or like, and unless of course, like, again, you're not like, it'd be different if you weren't exploring the planets at all. Because if you're exploring the planets and you're walking around the planet, it would be weird to just walk around and not have combat for long stretches. Like people might say that they're bored at that point. Especially if they're on a planet that they're just not super excited to explore. But I could see that. But otherwise, you're right. Like if you were mostly going to spaceports or different areas on planets and then talking to people and doing stuff in like a base or something like that, or it like was focused on puzzles and then you did, starship stuff, then you probably wouldn't need to have like ground combat probably.
Yeah, not too much. I was thinking more like the lore behind Fox with Wolf and then that clan, and then you got Corneria, that clan. Like you could just pick a side. Which clan do you want to be in? Do you want to figure out if you want to destroy Andros, or do you want to see what kind of motives does Andros have? Do you want to be a rogue person with your crew? I think, gosh, I could just go on and on about this. How much like writing. I'm sure there would be so much going into this project, so much creativity. I think Nintendo would not approve it at all, but I can dream. Yeah. This is like my dream Star Fox RPG. I would totally be on board for it.
So last question I have for you before we move on to my first choice, Garrett. Will there be an option that's like a renegade option or like an Andros option in the game where you get to kick Slippy Toad out of a window? Will that be an option in the game? Because like I need that in my life.
Yes, once you don't even have to hear Slippy Toad's voice. Yeah. You kick her out and she just go like she does in Star Fox 64. With the most high pitched sound in the world, and she's just gone.
Excellent.
Anyways,
that's what I needed to hear, because again that's one of my favorite scenes from Mass Effect 2 is just the renegade option where you get to kick this dude's just giving you a random spiel about how you stand no chance against him, you just kick him out the window. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
That's what I think too. I mean, Star Fox, you can have a definite bad side, an evil side to it. I think it would be so cool to explore that. So, anyways, that's my pick. That's my number one pick, I think, Star Fox.
Nice.
As an RPG.
Well, speaking of choices, Garrett, I'm glad that you started with the choice-based RPG to start off with, because my choice-based RPG was actually my number one pick too. And it's actually the thumbnail for this video. And that is inFamous from Sony, the superhero franchise. First of all, I love the inFamous games from Sucker Punch. They're so fun. They're like, if you've never played them before, folks at home, they're, third person action games where you have this giant open world to explore, like this city to explore. But you play as Cole in the first two games, and he has the power to control electricity. And then the third game you play as Dalton Rowe, and he has a bunch of different powers that he has access to. It's like the power of smoke and stuff like that, and turn himself into smoke and do all kinds of smoke-based things. Which is why, like, again, like the powers, for example, and the choices really made me think about inFamous actually turning into like a really good RPG, I think. And the type of RPG I'm actually kind of imagining for inFamous is like a semi-turn-based RPG. So think something like Final Fantasy 12 or KOTOR, where like your character auto attacks, but then you're issuing the abilities for your characters, and you can like pause time while you're doing that. You can have like three characters in your party, which kind of lines up with the three kind of main heroes in inFamous 2. So Quo and Cole and that other person that I can't remember, the girl who controls fire. It's been a long time since I played inFamous 2, but
I haven't played inFamous 1 and 2, so I'm completely drawing a blank there.
But one of the things that is great about the inFamous games are the choice-based gameplay and combat, because similar to the BioWare games, Cole can either be a superhero or a supervillain, and your choices and your actions through the gameplay really kind of dictate what path he goes down. And then it also changes the narrative and the ending, to the point where in inFamous 2, you had two like completely different endings from each other and two completely final sections of the game, depending on if you were good and evil, that then they actually had to decide, okay, we're going to make the good ending the canon ending for Infamous Second Son, because it wouldn't be possible to do both because they were so different from each other. So yeah, that's a series that, again, you could do a lot with, similar to what you talked about with Star Fox. I think you could do a lot of the similar things, with the dialogue. You could have a lot of choice-based stuff. The Infamous story games are also really good with character dialogue as well. Like, I love the character interactions and the way like all of the characters kind of interact with each other, and depending on the choices Cole makes in the Infamous games that we already have. I love the way that it affects the other characters, which then I think would port really well to an RPG. But again, it doesn't even have to be a game about, Cole or Delsin. It could be about like any other 3 superheroes that are in the world, or you could have a party of like 9 superheroes and you pick 3 for your main party, and then you kind of go on this big adventure together. Like, I think there's a lot of potential with like this type of game, especially because we don't have a lot of superhero RPGs. And that's
we really don't.
I think superheroes in general work really well for RPGs, especially because of the way, like, the way superpowers work for superheroes. So I think Infamous would make a really good RPG if Sony was to ever take the next step with that franchise, because it's basically been dormant since the launch of the PlayStation 4. They haven't made a new Infamous game since then, because Sucker Punch moved on to work on Ghost of Tsushima after that. So that's a franchise I would love to see come back just in general, but as an RPG, I think it would be like a standout. I think it would be awesome. And plus, like, Sony just doesn't have a lot of RPGs in its staple currently. So I actually think it'd be even a good fit in Sony at this point. But Garrett, what do you think?
I'll ask you a few questions here. One is, I played Infamous Second Son and First Light all the way through. I platinum it. I love those games. I'm trying to navigate what's the main difference between what you're proposing and what I played. I think the main kind of difference is the gameplay and the content. Like you say you want companions, some choice dialogue, but I feel like there's already choice in this video game. So yeah, can you just describe me a little bit what is the main big differences?
Well, again, the main big difference you highlighted, it would be the combat. Yeah, I think, and not only that too, I think they could really, because the combat is slowed down, I think that opens them up to, going deeper with the dialogue, because in Infamous Second Son, for example, you've got some great cinematic moments in Second Son, but for the most part, like 90% of that gameplay is either combat or traversing the environment, where I think doing an RPG version of it lends you to making it more of a cinematic experience. And that's probably the biggest difference, would be the way it tells its story. And then combined with the combat, like, would feel totally different. And not only that too, but I wouldn't want it to be an open world game. I think it would probably be better if it was more of a linear experience as an RPG, or likewise, maybe you're going to multiple cities or something like that,
or an open area of some kind. Or,
like something again, like KOTOR is like the example I really thought of as like the game that it kind of fits in the mold of.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. That's super neat. I would be down for that. I loved the Infamous Second Son. I played, I didn't have a PS3 and I wish I did, just because of the Infamous games, because I really enjoyed Second Son a lot, and I heard Infamous 1 and 2 is good. I tried to play Infamous 2 via cloud streaming. Of course, cloud streaming, all the latency stuff with action games, I couldn't get really used to it, but man, I hope they bring back Infamous. It doesn't seem like Sucker Punch wants to go back to that series, or really rush to go back to that series right now. I wonder who could, though, and see if they could put more of an RPG spin to it. That would be super neat.
Yeah, like, I'd love to see, like, it doesn't have to be Sucker Punch. Like, I like that Sucker Punch has kind of found its groove with Ghost of Tsushima, and then whatever they come up with next. Like,
so good.
Which is why, like, I would probably actually want, like, a different studio to make this. That either Sony contracts someone else out to do it, or they do it internally, kind of thing. But Garrett, before I go back to you, I kind of want to get my second one out of the way, because I'm going to have to double up at some point. I know we're going to have to, so
go for it.
We may as well double up right away, because this one I think will be a lot quicker. But I think you might be on board with this one, especially because, I thought about this one a lot when Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope came out this week. And I'm like, what game could fit in that? What kind of game series that doesn't do an RPG kind of fits in that mold? And the answer to that question, Garrett, this may surprise you. Resident Evil I think would actually fit the Mario plus Rabbids model really well. Sure, it wouldn't have like some of the goofy slide tackling stuff from Mario plus Rabbids, but the way that Mario plus Rabbids plays with the non-grid based strategy RPG gameplay, I think would actually fit Resident Evil really well. And then you could kind of, explore a mansion that way. And as you explore the mansion, you're then, fighting zombies. And then maybe you exit the mansion in like after the first couple levels. And then you go into Raccoon City. And then you're kind of the levels take place kind of in different environments in Raccoon City. And then maybe after that, you can go into like the subway system or go into all kinds of areas of Raccoon City. But like Resident Evil has been a series that's been around since the PS1, and there are so many games of the series, but they've never done an RPG in Resident Evil at all. Like they've done all kinds of spin-offs before. There's been like multiplayer spin-off shooters of Resident Evil. There's been light gun Resident Evil games, but they've never done an RPG before. And as someone who's a Resident Evil fan who loves, survival horror and loves Resident Evil, and again, we've seen RPGs in horror actually work out with stuff like Parasite Eve or Corpse Party. Like, I think the horror genre needs more RPGs, and I think Resident Evil is a perfect fit with something like this. And even if you didn't want to do a complete ripoff of Mario plus Rabbids, you could do something more, like, way more serious in tone and do something like XCOM or Wasteland 3.
I was thinking Wasteland 3. Yeah. That was my number one thing with this game. I'm super down with this one. Resident Evil has never resonated with me because I don't know. I just never got into the horror genre itself. But this would definitely get me into Resident Evil. I've really wanted to get into Resident Evil. It's just every time I do, I feel so, and this is just with every horror game I play. It's just I feel I always struggle. Like I get into it and I'm like, I feel this defenseless. I feel slow and muddy. I don't know what to do. And,
but that's the point though. That's how they get you scared or make the moments more tense by, just constricting your gameplay options a little bit. Like a lot of times some of that stuff is like designed in on purpose. Like the whole reason why the original Resident Evil has like the tank controls and then the static camera movements wasn't because of the technology at the time, but it was just to make it scarier and to make it more tense, because you didn't have these like super responsive controls to get through the environment. It was more like picking and choosing your battles and knowing like when to run and when to fight, which was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that experience could translate really well into some kind of strategy RPG, whether it's, again, more like the Mario and Rabbids kind of freestyle one or like a grid-based strategy RPG. I think either way, it would be really awesome.
So I'm thinking also Mutant Year Zero is another kind of game that got in. It's not horror, but it's definitely darker, much more grim. Like, I would be totally down. So the developers, the Bearded Ladies. So if the Bearded Ladies, I think they're owned by the big company, I forgot, the THQ Nordic people now, Embracer.
Embracer. So either they're under Deep Silver or one of those other companies.
Yeah. Anyways, I want the Bearded Ladies to make this game because I think they would do a very good job at the kind of just the it's horror, but they know how to like make sure the game's not struggles, but like it's gonna be hard to get through this game. Make it horror, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
So,
yeah, just
super cool.
Especially like when you see like a Licker or some of the classic Resident Evil like enemies. You could bring in someone like Mr. X or Nemesis or something like that as like a boss character, and then as soon as you see them, you're like, oh crap, we gotta run and get out of here as quickly as possible. Get to like the the next stage and try and escape and stuff like that. I'm like giddy just talking about it. Like I could imagine just so many cool possibilities with Resident Evil as an RPG that I'm surprised Capcom's just never thought about doing it before.
Yeah, me too. That sounds super neat. Of course, they had to, go off and try to make that multiplayer game that they just announced
Reverse.
Again.
Resident Evil Reverse, which is finally coming out, Garret. It's finally coming out next month. So, yeah, get ready for that.
See how that goes. It's coming in high, everyone.
Yeah,
so
please be excited for Resident Evil Reverse. But anyways, Garret, those are my first two. I think I started off pretty strong. We've had some good picks so far.
That's pretty good.
Garret, hit me with your second pick. What do you got next?
All right, so this is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time. Really moved me, but it's not an RPG. And it would be really cool to see it as an RPG. And I'm glad you said tactical RPG Mario plus Rabbids because I was thinking the same thing as well. BioShock. You ever heard of this
Yes.
franchise? Yes, of course I had to mention this just because BioShock, I love all three games, BioShock 1 and 2 and Infinite. A great deal. I don't think like one's really better than the other. I think all of them have its like pros and cons to it, but
Yeah.
overall, I love the world building of this franchise. They did a fantastic job of just like going through the political motives behind making a utopian kind of society, whether it's underneath the ocean or above in the sky. And then on top of that, bring a little bit of that American history in there, like kind of just tie in together. Thought that was super neat, made it really grounded. But then the kind of apocalyptic horror vibe behind Bioshock was really that got me. The big daddies, the little sisters, and then all the magic and kind of like the enemies that go crazy in there. Oh man, I just would love a tactical role playing game based off of the BioShock atmosphere and franchise. I think that would be really cool. Have a team that you needed to like go through a certain level, just like in a BioShock level,
Mhm.
but instead in a tactical setting. Instead of just one person, yourself, going through this adventure, you're going to have a crew of members going through this adventure. And as you go through this game, you're going to probably gain other friends throughout the way or make enemies. I think that would be super cool as well. I could see it being both underneath the ocean and then back up into the sky in Colombia.
Mhm.
I think that would be super neat. I don't know if you knew this, Brian, but they were developing this type of game
Oh,
for the
100%.
PlayStation.
Literally the whole time you were talking, Garrett, I was ready
Yes.
to pounce. I was ready to be like,
Yes.
this pitch is exactly the same as Ken Levine's
Yes.
pitch for the BioShock PlayStation Vita game, right?
Yes, and it would have been wonderful.
It would have been
if it
amazing,
came
like
out.
especially on Vita. Like, oh my god, it would have
Yes,
been so good. It might have been one of the best games on Vita.
but of course, Sony had to pull out support of the Vita, and Kevin Levine being Kevin Levine, he, if it's not perfect, he's not going to approve of it. He's not going to sign off on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was going to be a hard game to come to fruition, but the idea of it, just like from beginning to end, and putting it on a handheld device like that,
Yeah.
would have been so cool at the time. So yeah, I just want to bring this game up. Like, I just like, come on, guys. You want to do it again. I know you're making BioShock 4 or whatever new BioShock game you want to play, but if that becomes successful, you have another avenue to go through, and that is a tactical RPG. And it would be pretty great to have this in a BioShock universe.
Like, that's
So
still,
many things you can do.
it still kills me that we never got that game. Like that, it's
Yeah.
up there with like the canceled games that I wanted the most. Like, it's up there on the list. That list consists of BioShock on Vita, Full Throttle 2 with like the sequel to the Tim Schafer game, and then StarCraft Ghost, the stealth like Metal Gear Solid StarCraft game. Like that, those are the three games that I wished we would have gotten that we just never got, that got canceled. So yeah, like you're spot on with BioShock again for all the reasons we talked about with inFamous, where I think like, slowing down the combat and making it turn-based just allows them to tell the story in a different and more interesting way than they ever could in first person with, the mainline games. Again, the story itself is very rich and is great in the three main BioShock games. But imagining that level of storytelling, but in like a slower paced, more cinematic RPG, like, please, like, that's just a no-brainer. Like, yes, please, give it to me right now. But
yes.
And we know a BioShock 4 is in development at some point, and we did hear, rumblings about it taking place in Antarctica and all kinds of details about the game, but non-RPG by the sounds of it, unfortunately. Which makes me sad.
Yeah, it sounds like gonna be another first person, which I think they should. I think if you bring back BioShock, it should be in that vein to just remind people. But then if that becomes successful, you got this other thing that you want to do, and it would be super cool to see that come to fruition again.
Well, yeah, you don't want to pull a Metroid Prime Federation Force or a Valkyrie Elysium where you have like a franchise that's been dead for 15 years finally come back, and it's something completely different from what the actual series is. So yeah, at some point I do hope they go back to the well on that one, because I think it's still an amazing idea that's just sitting there waiting for someone to do that.
I need to replay those games, man. It's been a while. BioShock 1 was very memorable for me. Mm-hmm. I actually played it pretty late, like 2000. It's like 2013 or something like that.
I mean, I recently played them again last year, and they still look amazing and still play really well. And I still really enjoyed going through them last year. So there you go.
Yeah, the remaster versions are pretty good. Like the ones on currently PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah. They're really well made.
Yeah, they updated them specifically for PS4 Pro and One X. So you've actually got some really good enhancements if you're playing them on PS5 and Series X as well.
So go for it.
Yeah. Anyways, Garrett, for my next one, I thought about this one a lot because I don't know if you knew this, Garrett, but I've been playing this little game that's been out for a couple weeks called Overwatch 2. And it's super fun. Okay. Yeah. And there's lots of, colorful heroes in that game. And we're still waiting for the single player for that game to come out at some point. But it's a first person shooter. If only they had this really rich world with tons of amazing characters. And then they could put them in an RPG. I think an Overwatch RPG would be incredible. Like, especially with the way that you would work in this giant, cast of characters that you have in Overwatch is you do a grid-based overhead Fire Emblem style strategy RPG with Overwatch, and have all of the different heroes have their different abilities, like Reinhardt, for example, with his giant shield and his giant hammer kind of being like the tank of your party, and kind of having abilities to like taunt kind of some of the enemies that you run into, where you might have, Mercy on your grid, going to heal like your tank character, and then you've got some of your other characters that you can choose from. Of course, I'm imagining a game like Fire Emblem where you have like a party of 10 Overwatch characters that you throw in, and then you unlock like all like 40 Overwatch characters, throughout the entirety of the experience, and you have like one giant party towards the end of the game. This is a franchise just kind of like League of Legends, where like there's so much room for this franchise to grow because of, again, all the rich world building they've done through all the different animated shorts they've done, with the novels and comics and other media that they've done outside the games, that I really think that they could do something else in other genres, kind of like League of Legends did with the Ruined King that I talked about last year, which was like a turn-based RPG in the League of Legends universe. Yeah. I think like Blizzard could do an awesome strategy role-playing game with the Overwatch characters, and have them all, with unique abilities, and tell a great story. And I think it lends well to other game types. I also could even see Overwatch being like eventually like a third person action adventure game, or like, an Overwatch sports game. I think they could do at some point. Like, they could do all kinds of crazy stuff with this franchise. But specifically, I want them to do an RPG character because I'm selfish. And that's just, as someone who's a fan of Overwatch, this is something I really want them to do at some point, or at least explore the idea of doing an Overwatch RPG, even if it's not exactly what I've described. Maybe if they do like focus on 3 or 4 characters and then do like a turn-based RPG, kind of like League of Legends did. I still think that there's a lot of room in this space for a franchise like Overwatch. So that's one I'd love to see as an RPG somewhere down there.
I agree with you. Yeah. I really liked Overwatch 1 when I played it back in, I forgot, like 2016 or something like that, 2017.
It was Game of the Year 2016 at a lot of outlets.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. That's actually one of the first games I got when I got my Xbox One S. Yeah, I think. So I'm so surprised, because I'm not too surprised. Blizzard kind of does a lot of lore building around their games so much. I'm very surprised, not WoW, but like their other franchises, they're not like, you don't have a fully fleshed RPG. What? Like you created all this. Yeah. Like you literally created this whole world, and you're just gonna do a multiplayer shooter. I'm not saying it was like, probably lower in the totem pole. That's great. You did a multiplayer shooter. That's great. Like I'm sure you're getting a lot of bans around it, but you're not doing an role playing game. Like you're not doing anything else. You've done like 75% of the work.
Yeah.
With this lore. Okay, now you got to build a story and then you got to build the game. Okay, that'll take a long time, but man, you got the lore down. Yeah. Like it's there. Like you've done it. So
and the name brand's well established. Like people will buy it. People will line up to buy this game. Whatever else they decide to put out. Again, even if they didn't want to do a RPG with it, even if they made like any other spin-off game of Overwatch, it would sell. And which is why, like, again, they wouldn't have to worry about money with that. Which, again, all the questions you're asking, Garret, are the same questions that people asked Riot for years before they finally caved. And, after running League of Legends for 15 years, they finally put out something else besides League of Legends. So, yeah, that's kind of the predicament, that Blizzard's in at this point, where I hope at some point, hopefully it doesn't take 15 years to get there, but I hope at some point they do something else with this franchise that's not just like a multiplayer shooter.
Yeah, and I'm sure Overwatch 2 is great. It's just, I hear it's just very
I love it. I've been playing it a lot, so.
Yeah. I heard it's just hard to transition over. There's some great things. The queues I heard were super long.
Yeah.
Initially, of course.
All that's been fixed. There's not 50,000 people in queue in front of me every time I sign in anymore.
Okay, that's good.
By the way, I didn't make up that number, superfluously. That actually was a thing that happened.
Yeah. I think it would benefit them to just at least try. I understand their hesitation, though. It would take a lot of resources to make a game like this. So it's it would be high stakes. So anyways, it would be cool to see.
All right. Actually, Garret, before you move on, I have a quick one I'll do real quick. And then
go for it, yeah.
Next one. My next one, before my last one, it's this little game called The Sims, Garret. I think The Sims would make a fantastic. I already see you're just like, what is Ryan talking about here? So, I mean, all those farming simulators, Garret, now that are RPGs. You got Harvest Moon, you got Disney Dreamlight Valley, you've got
Harvestella.
You got Harvestella. Why isn't it The Sims' turn to do an RPG? Just think about it, Garret, because again, like just like the Overwatch comparison that we just did, like The Sims has been a franchise since like the mid 90s, and then pretty much every Sims game they've put out is just another version of The Sims. Sometimes it's themed, it's different. Sometimes it's got vampires, or sometimes you're partying at people's apartments. Like that. Sometimes the catch is your babies now have different color clothes now. But for the most part, The Sims has never really tried to do like a game in the Sims universe that's a different type of franchise. So again, the idea that I kind of came up with this is they could do like a straight ripoff of something like Harvest Moon, but set it in the Sims universe. They have already done like the cottage expansion for The Sims 4, which is kind of like Harvest Moon in a lot of ways, where you kind of got this farm and you're at this cottage, and it's very much like that type of experience anyways. They just need to go that extra step and just make it's a side game called The Sim Stories or something stupid like that. Give your sim like some levels, and have some action combat where you're fighting some monsters. Because again, your sims already brawl and fight other sims in The Sims now anyways. What's the difference of adding a combat engine to that? Because my werewolf sometimes will fight a vampire sim just because they just feel like fighting. So why not translate that into an action RPG? I think that'd be pretty cool. Again, I'm just seeing the disbelief on your face. So Garret, I'm ready for your questions.
I just, The Sims kind of like, I'm in awe of, because I know a lot of people enjoy this game, and I understand that. The role-playing game, you just really want them to get into more just non-sim stuff, like the very wacky stuff.
I mean, The Sims is already a very wacky game, and again, they try all kinds of. They add some RPG elements to The Sims from time to time. Like my sim, for example, has like this giant skill tree already with like all these different skills that I earn by doing different tasks, or when you become a vampire or a werewolf, you have your own skill tree for being a werewolf or a vampire that then you kind of level up, but it doesn't have a level up system in the same way an RPG has. which is why I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
they're like halfway there at this point. So like there's a framework there to make like a pretty smooth transition to making like a Sims, standalone RPG game.
So are you just controlling one person or multiple people in The Sims? I thought it was everyone.
So you control everyone that is in the household that you're controlling. So my household in The Sims
Okay.
only has one person in it, which is me. So I only really
Okay.
am controlling the one person. Now, when I got married in The Sims, my wife lived with me, so I controlled my wife, and I also controlled the toddler that we had and the 5 other children
Mm,
that we had. But then they all left me, Garrett. They
wow.
all left my house because they don't like me very much. But yeah,
You're back to being one.
so it's
Wow.
but you, for the most part in The Sims, you're only. It's not like a roller coaster tycoon or something where you're not controlling the
Mhm.
entire world of The Sims at once. You're only really focused on one family at a time, kind of thing.
Mhm. Okay. Well, there's a lot to think about because as you can tell, I'm not familiar with The Sims,
Yeah,
so I'm more inclined to believe you that it would be great to put in an RPG in terms of like a farming sim
yeah,
slash RPG in a way. I believe that a little bit more than anything else, but that's a stretch
yeah.
for me
Well, again,
because
I had to have at least one goofy game on here, and The Sims
of course.
definitely kind of fit that bill. And also, it's just very topical because, to Luckless' point, I'm actually going to be streaming The Sims on Thursday because people have been
Mhm.
asking, they praying, no, they begging for me to be playing The Sims on stream, and it's finally
Cool.
happening on Thursday. So I'm finally going to do like a face reveal showing my sim off that I've been talking about for months and months and months on the Xbox Drive. So that's why it's very
Is The
topical.
Sims 5 gonna come out soon?
Yeah, they actually
Is that a
just
thing?
announced it at a press conference last week.
Okay, yeah, that's
But
what
but
I
it's
thought.
it's
Like,
probably like 2024, 2025 at the earliest, I think. Because The
oh,
Sims
okay,
4 just
got
went
it,
free to play this week, so everyone can play it now.
got it,
Yeah.
got it.
But
Cool.
anyways, Garrett, we're 49 minutes in, and we have 2 more games left. So Garrett, give me your last game.
I actually got two more, but I'll be
Oh.
super quick. One is the Horizon series. I want to, get into that because I know Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. You got Aloy. Um, it's an action adventure game. It has a lot of great RPG elements into it, as like a lot of other games. But I think you can make it more role playing game, and make it super fun if going down that route. And so, hear me out. I want a Horizon game where you can build your own character and just be set into this universe, this Horizon universe. Not following a story in a sense. You can have a mainline story like Fallout, Skyrim, or whatever, but I would definitely like more agency behind choice and also customization with the character.
Mm.
I think Aloy's characters, while you can do different stuff, there's a lot of tips and tricks. You can, have some bombs and grenades. You can have your bows have different arrows. I understand that. And you have traps. You can put booby traps all around. But she is kinetic. She's always fast. She's always there doing her thing and dodging and weaving different robots and stuff. I want a character that's a little bit more customizable. I would like to be super fast and super stealthy, or I would like to be more tank heavy and
Mm.
like just go all at it. So I would like to just have some more agency behind customization of gear and skills behind the Horizon universe. I would love a kind of revamped skill system, not this typical, oh, go up a skill tree and whatever. It's like, no, you kind of build your level based off of your gameplay. Like, you don't get to choose, you get to choose what you play, and then you can level up the certain skills, and then you can add certain perks to those gameplay. So I think I'm down with, like, so think of like a Skyrim kind of slash Fallout version, in a Horizon setting.
Okay.
That's what I'd be super down with.
So not a Horizon MMO, because that's where I thought you were leaning there
No.
for just a teensy bit, because all the things you're describing also kind of work in the MMO framework a little bit, Garrett.
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't like, well, I would like an MMO setting in a sense of, kind of what I've explained, but I wouldn't like a multiplayer game in general.
Yeah.
Just single player.
Well, you could do something like Final Fantasy
version.
14, where it is mostly a single player game that, if you want to play with other people, you can, kind of thing.
Yeah. So there you go. That's my pitch, is the Horizon series game that just has more agency behind customization skills, and it can have some choice or whatever, but it's just, I think that's what I want a little bit more out of the Horizon games, is that.
Nice.
And then last one I want to mention is I absolutely love the kind of the atmosphere behind Titanfall.
Okay.
And
that's a good one.
I would be super down with a Titanfall open world, just go crazy first person RPG where you just set off in the universe and you can just do whatever. I'm thinking of, I played Rage 2 over a weekend, and I know it's like kind of middling, but it was a blast for me just to go through all those different types of stuff and like go through different locations or whatever. Just have that with Titanfall and just like, let me just go off into the world and just explore and just, go into certain locations, just shoot things down and do quests. And just like, man, I would be so down for an open world action first-person shooter role-playing game set in the Titanfall universe.
That would be so cool. I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm now kind of want that game now, Garrett, because that sounds really fun.
So there you go. You may have your robot or not. Maybe you can recruit a robot companion along the way. But man, I think Titanfall and Call of Duty has the tightest first-person mechanics ever. I just wish there was a role-playing game version of it, because there isn't.
Yeah.
The closest I've had was Rage 2. And Rage 2 was cool, but it was just, it was just
well, even if they didn't want to
it's
do
not
it in
really
a
a role-playing
game style,
game
they could do something like Destiny Titanfall or something like that. But even make it,
Destiny
but just make it more
one.
single-player focused kind of thing. Like, I think that'd be really interesting too. But
yeah. I'll be super down with that. So
nice.
Anyways, those are my last two.
And then I got my last one, Garrett, which is, everyone knows I love fighting games. And I think there's a lot of fighting game franchises that would work really well as RPGs, but we just don't see that all that often. We don't see a lot of, spin-off games of a lot of fighting games. But the one fighting game that I think would make an excellent RPG is Guilty Gear from Arc System Works. I actually think the Guilty Gear franchise, similar to what I was talking about Overwatch, there's a giant cast of, really lovable and interesting and well-written characters over the Guilty Gear games going forward. Like the games themselves, the single player campaign for the Guilty Gear games are basically visual novels for the most part, in the case of the newest game, Guilty Gear Strive, instead of doing the visual novel, they just made like a 3-hour movie that you just watch in the in-game engine with the different characters. And I'm like, this is really cool, but what if they had, these cinematics and this storytelling that they did in Strive with the giant movie that they did? But what if there was like RPG elements that you could, with the environments you could explore, like some of them takes place in like the Washington DC, and you could go explore like Washington DC as like these military dudes, or you could explore like the desert with Soul Bad Guy, or you could work as like Kai Kiske to track down some dudes, or and having them like all the characters kind of come together in this like turn-based RPG. I think would be like really, really, really cool. And especially because then you could, with it being a turn-based RPG, you could then use some of the characters' special moves from the fighting game as like your skills for the different characters. Like, it kind of just writes itself when you think about it a little bit. But Guilty Gear is a series that
sounds cool.
Believe it or not, just has like a lot of great storytelling in its games. But just most people don't, play that portion, because Guilty Gear already is a niche enough series as it is. But then most of the people that are really into it are just into the competitive fighting scene at this point. So they mostly just avoid all the single player stuff, which is why, again, the main reason why they didn't have any gameplay elements in, the campaign for Strive. They just made it a movie instead that you can just watch if you want to get the story. So I'm just imagining the level of storytelling they have in that 3-hour movie, which is awesome. Like, it's really amazing and well told, well voice acted. Like, imagining that in an RPG with like that level of storytelling, I think would be amazing. So Guilty Gear is kind of my last pick here, but then I also had some honorable mentions here, and I'm just gonna fly through these.
Go for it.
Speaking of fighting game franchises, Mortal Kombat. I actually think Mortal Kombat would make like a really good RPG series that could be like really goofy and fun. Like they more than anyone could do the Mario Rabbids like very goofy RPG with something like Mortal Kombat. Like I think that would be super cool. Halo, I think Halo as a series
Halo
would be like a really cool like either action RPG series or like strategy RPG series. Metal Gear Solid, I think, would be an interesting pick for an RPG series as well. Maybe doing something more like a BioWare RPG kind of thing, but with Metal Gear Solid. Dead Space.
That'd be cool.
If you want to bring in more horror stuff, Dead Space, I think would make like a really cool like Parasite Eve like RPG. And then, you know, shout out to, you know, the heart of hearts here, StarCraft. I mean, StarCraft is one of my favorite franchises of all time. And just like Overwatch, like, the fact that, you know, StarCraft Ghost got canceled, which was the only StarCraft spinoff we're ever going to get, and they've never made one since, with how long StarCraft's been a franchise since, you know, 1997 at this point. Like, I just want them to do an RPG as StarCraft. Whether it's a, you know, they did the one, like, April Fool's joke for Blizzard, because every year Blizzard does like an April Fool's joke on April Fool's Day, and one year they did World of StarCraft, which was like a World of Warcraft MMO but with StarCraft, and they had like actual screenshots of that they had like developed themselves like in the World of Warcraft engine but with the StarCraft characters, and I'm like, why is this an April Fool's joke instead of a real game? Like, what are you doing, Blizzard? Like, oh my god, like, and
that would have been great.
We just keep pointing out Blizzard because again, they have like so many of these franchises that they just build up they do all this world building to have them again just kind of be slotted in one genre, but they really would make great RPGs of some kind. So there you go. Those are my honorable mentions. But Garrett, we should jump into some of these listener submissions as well because we got a few of these. So let's start with Blaze Knight, and this one's a bit of a reader, so hang tight, Garrett. Buckle in your seatbelts here. Blaze Knight says, such an engaging question. I apologize in advance for the lengthy answer. I'd love to see more horror RPGs. So a character-driven horror franchise like Resident Evil or Fatal Frame would lend themselves to the genre really, really well. I'd also like to see how a stealth-based RPG would plan out. So series like Metal Gear, A Plague Tale, Shadow Tactics, Blade of the Shogun, or Wildfire would be really good. Also good candidates for tactical RPGs would be Mass Effect, State of Decay, and The Walking Dead. So a lot to unpack there. Some really good stuff. Is there anything that stands out in Blaze Knight's submissions, Garrett, to you?
I would be down for The Walking Dead tactical RPG. I would be super down. A Plague Tale is interesting. I probably don't see it too much, but Metal Gear stealth-based RPG for sure. Yeah, totally see it.
And Mass Effect,
a lot of good choices. Yeah,
Mass Effect. I still can't believe they haven't when they after Andromeda as their kind of their side game. That was more like Mass Effect. Like I still can't believe they don't have like a strategy role-playing game based off Mass Effect, or just a strategy game based off Mass Effect, or some other, you know, game in the Mass Effect. It would have been perfect. Universe. Yeah, it'd be really interesting.
The developers for XCOM, like they would develop this like a heartbeat and be amazing.
If only EA and 2K get to get along well enough for that to work, because Firaxis is owned by 2K. But
that's true.
Yeah. Well, next up we got Grouchy Surge, who says, I would love to see an actual Zelda RPG. And I'd love to see some sports RPGs as well. But horror, I want a really good, deep, bloody, scary horror RPG. Again, lots of love for the horror RPGs. It just shows like the fact that we just don't have horror RPGs released nowadays. It's a crime against humanity, Garrett. But
it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Especially with the big horror genre going on. There's a lot of horror games. Like even the next few months. Coming out, there's a lot of good stuff.
Next year we've got Resident Evil, we've got Dead Space, we may have Silent Hill 2, and then, you know, I don't know if you saw this, Garrett, but this got me to spam the eye emoji on Twitter like it was nobody's business. A trademark leaked for a new Parasite Eve game, and I am busting, but from that news, I can't believe that's real life. And please don't give me the hope that that Parasite Eve is coming back if it's not, because that's the one thing I want more than anything is Parasite Eve to come back. But I'm actually surprised either of us picked Zelda. I purposely didn't put Zelda on my list because I figured Garrett might actually put Zelda on his.
I just, you know, I have it as a joke as a card-based RPG, but like honestly, I don't know how Zelda would be an RPG like too much.
Because the closest we got was Zelda 2.
Games.
Like Zelda 2 is pretty. I talked about it before on the show, but Zelda 2 is basically just an action RPG. So I mean that's the closest we'll probably ever see to Zelda as an RPG.
Yeah, I just, other than that, I just don't see it in any other spin for a role-playing game. I don't want it to be a choice or agent-based RPG. I don't want it to be a tactical role-playing game. I don't want to be like, yeah, it would have to be an action RPG of some kind.
So just make it like Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts Zelda, that's all we need. Oh, that look. Oh, that look is so good.
Gave me a headache.
Also, we've got some good sports RPGs out there to Grachiter's point. I mean, there's Golf Story. There's also Mario Golf on Game Boy Advance. Advance Tour is like a really good RPG. Like some people might call that the Chrono Trigger of sports games, but there's some good choices out there. Mm-hmm. And we know Sports Story is coming at some point too. So I think there's some good sports RPGs coming, but maybe more of them to Grachiter's point may be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Next
That'd
up,
be great.
Nagachaka says, I think that the Batman Arkham games would make a great card-based RPG game series. Your party could be made up of Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Red Hood. Attack cards can consist of melee attacks or different bat gadgets. Make it happen, Rocksteady. Is what Nagachaka said. Which again, it's funny he says this because Gotham Knights is actually an action RPG, and it's not just me saying that. Like the game is marketed as an RPG. So I mean, they have just released a Batman RPG that has all the characters Nagachaka put in, but his spin in the card one is really interesting. Garrett is the resident card RPG person on this phone call. What do you think about this idea?
1,000% in. I'm so down with this. I would be ecstatic to see a superhero-based card RPG. Mm-hmm. Nagachaka, you did it. You this is like my number one answer. I would love this because I think Batman is a lot of great characters in there, a lot of great power-ups and gadgets, as you say, in there. Yeah, you can build your own decks and just go through a role-playing game. I'm down. You sold me.
Or even if they didn't want to go like full card RPG, like even if they did something like Voice of Cards, like that series that's out now, where it's basically just a standard RPG but in like card format, would be interesting too with Batman. But yeah, I'm actually surprised too because like Batman, the Arkham games again, like and Gotham Knights again is an action RPG. But like this is really the first time they've really done like a Batman RPG at all, if memory serves. Like I don't know of another Batman RPG that exists. So that's another series too. Like, and there's a lot of licensed stuff and we talked about that before on like the best license episode that we did, where we talked about like some games that would make great RPGs. And I think Batman or other superhero RPGs would be really interesting to see more of.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
All right. And then last submission before we get to our questions, because we actually have, a couple questions beyond this. This one comes to us from Skycatcher Gaming, who says non-RPG series should be Sonic to take an RPG, and also Streets of Rage or Ninja Turtles. Well, fun fact, Skycatcher Gaming, there already is a Sonic RPG that you can go play right now on your Nintendo DS. Sonic Chronicle: The Dark Brotherhood, made by BioWare, exists as an RPG, but doing a new Sonic RPG would be really interesting and cool. I agree with that. But Streets of Rage, I think that'd be interesting too. But Streets of Rage is like, it's a beat 'em up and there's not really a lot of lore there. So I'm like, I don't know how they translate that to an RPG really well, but Ninja Turtles, now we're talking. I think like that would, like we talked about that on the licensed episode, but I think like a Ninja Turtle RPG that's turn-based with the 4 turtles as your party members, like,
yes,
it just writes itself. Just please.
And then you can like kind of translate characters if you want to. You can have other companions on the side. I would be down for a Ninja Turtles RPG.
And there's so many interesting bosses that the Ninja Turtles fight, kind of like your point with Batman. So I think they could have like really interesting enemy design and stuff with a Turtles RPG. So yeah, I'm surprised that, that never happened in the Konami era, or it's never happened for Turtles. They've never done an RPG for Turtles before. So
just don't give it to Platinum. Just don't do that. Just give it to someone else.
Oh, please. Come on. Babylon's Fall turned out great, Garrett. It's fine. It's fine.
And the Ninja Turtles, whatever in time. Yeah, that was
Also, Garrett, how hilarious is it going to be that this year it's entirely possible that Platinum comes out with the worst rated game of the year and one of the best rated games in the exact same year. They put out both of them because they did Babylon's Fall and they got Bayonetta 3. So
yeah,
I can't believe it. I'm actually really excited.
They're shutting down service.
I'm excited to see Bayonetta reviews this week because again, the game's out on Friday.
Me too.
So yeah,
I mean, I hear it's a great series, and I know a lot of people are looking forward to the third one. And Platinum, when they really want to hit, they'll hit. Yeah. So I think it will be a good game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bayonetta is gonna hit, and I'm really excited to play it this week. But, anyways, let's let some of our friends into the cave with us as well, because again, we've got a couple, or I guess like two questions kind of linked together. So we're gonna start with this one from Delroy, who asks, just a general RPG question: is the Royal content worth another 100+ hours for people who have played vanilla Persona 5 already? And why does Nagachaka need to drop everything and place Persona 5 Royal right now while it's on Game Pass? And then Nagachaka actually responded to this, and this kind of feels into this question, and he asks, what's so special about Persona 5 Royal? So, Garrett, first of all, I don't think you've played the Royal content, right? I think you've only played the base game?
I have not.
Yeah.
No. I plan on playing it very soon. That's the one game I will play on Game Pass. Well, I'll play other games, but
you better play Persona 3 on Game Pass next year, Garrett, because we need to talk about it next year at some point.
I'm playing A Plague Tale Requiem right now on Game Pass, so it's filling up. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so I've played the Royal content before. Again, I have the Platinum in Persona 5 Royal. But you don't need to play the game twice. You only need to play through it once.
That's nice.
And I just really enjoyed going back into it, because one of the nice things about the Royal version of the game is it doesn't just give you the extra, 30 hours at the end of the game. And again, for starters, if you actually don't do it correctly, it doesn't even let you do the Royal content. I actually encourage you, if you're playing Persona 5 Royal for the first time, figure out the specific conditions you need to fulfill to unlock the Royal.
Look it up.
Yeah, make sure to look it up. Look up like a spoiler-free walkthrough about it, because you're gonna want to see that content, because this is really good. Like, it's actually like a really good, 30 hours to kind of end the story, because it takes place after where the ending would have taken place in Persona 5.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but one of the nice things they did about the Royal version as well is they added all kinds of new interesting features to the way the combat works, or they added new confidants for you to explore. So there's a lot more to the game than just the content that's at the end of the game. And I think that the experience just all around is just so much smoother and so much better from start to finish. So I think it is worth it to go back, but it just depends on, it's not something that if you've already played Persona 5 already and you're not like craving like a second playthrough of that game, then maybe don't jump into it right away. But it's a thing you should play at some point if you are interested in playing this content, because I think it's definitely worth it, especially if you're ever going to replay this game. Don't go back and play OG Persona 5. Play Royal instead, because again, the gameplay tweaks that they do to the game combined with the Royal content just make it a superior experience. And then again, I think the ending that they give you for doing the Royal experience is much more fulfilling than the original ending too. So there's a lot of good reasons to play the Royal content. But Garrett, to throw things back here to Nagachaka's question, I'm going to ask you, what makes Persona 5 a special game? Because again, Nagachaka's never played Persona 5 at all.
Persona 5 is one of the best JRPGs out there. I just think from beginning to end, it's such a unique experience. The Persona series, going through, and the writing behind this game, it does a really good job of like mixing in the visual novel stuff behind all the different characters and building their relationships, and then setting a JRPG setting right in there. I think it's the combat is very nice. The turn-based combat is like Shin Megami Tensei style. You got your personas all around. The world building behind this game is so cool. I like, being in the setting of like with the students and like figuring out all the confidant ranks and relationships going on, figuring out this kind of the cases going on over and over again, and figuring out the mystery behind it, stealing the hearts of other people. Man, yeah, no, the story is just a roller coaster. The gameplay is fantastic all around. Yeah, it's one of the more influential RPGs for me.
Yeah.
That and Persona 4 Golden. Really big highlights for me.
Yeah. And again, the one
I can't wait to play Persona 5 Royal. You know.
And the one step up this has over the other Persona games as well is even just the visual design and the way, like, I love the use of, the color red and just the way just the visual designs of the characters and the environments just look. I love all that stuff. But also too, the other Persona games don't take place in Tokyo, and this is the first one that does. And I love just the representation of the city of Tokyo in Persona 5 and how you can explore all the different, places in Tokyo itself. Like you can go to Akihabara, you can go to Shinjuku, you can go to all these different places and kind of, get like a mini tour of like all of the most popular places in Tokyo, in a video game. And as someone who's been to all those places before, it's like very accurate to like the real life experience in a lot of ways.
So cool.
So getting to experience that in a video game was also really special to me. Because again, I had actually played, Persona 5 after going to Tokyo for the first time. So it was really cool to see a bunch of spots that I actually recognize from visiting the place in the video game. So I just love that attention to detail to it. But also, again, the music in Persona is amazing, especially Persona 5. I love like the jazz soundtrack that got going on there. And then in Royal, they did a bunch of new tracks for it as well. But what's also interesting about the Game Pass version of it, because it comes with all the DLC, if you don't, for some reason, like the music in Persona 5 Royal, you can actually swap it out for soundtracks for the older Persona games. Like you could swap the music with Persona 4's music, or Persona 3's music, or 2, or 1, or some of the spin-off games. Like it's so cool. And it almost feels like the Royal version in particular with the DLC just feels like kind of like a celebration of just the Persona series in general across all the games. So
super cool. I can't wait to play it. I'll definitely play on Game Pass, and I will finish it before it leaves Game Pass. I think it will probably be a year, or maybe 2-year deal.
Sega tends to go a little bit longer than Square Enix. Square Enix is usually like the 1 year exactly. With a lot of their games, but Sega, like the Yakuza games, for example, had been there forever. Like it took them like 2 or 3 years before
they've been for a while.
Yeah. But
cool.
But anyways, that's going to do it for the questions this week. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of the show. So before I throw it to plugs, Garrett, next week, it's going to be a very interesting episode. It's going to be a spooktacular episode because next week's episode going to take place on Halloween. I may or may not be wearing a costume. We might be talking about. I might be talking about a very spooky game with a cool guest that I've wanted to talk about on the show for forever. So I'm so excited for next week's episode. So I just wanted to give a little tease for next week's kind of spooktacular episode of the RPG Cave. But now I'm going to say, Garrett, plugs go.
You can follow me at Twitter at Bland Explosion. You can also find me on the Nintendo Shack, part of the Play Some Video Games Podcast Network, where we're live each and every Friday night when Rebecca's PC is working. Over at twitch.tv/PSVG. We're normally live like at night, and then we release on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Google and all the podcast services. So go check us out there. And that's pretty much it, Ryan. What about you?
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. You also find us on Twitter at Carpool Gaming. If you want to hang out and talk to Court Lalonde, he's over there. Also on YouTube at youtube.com/Carpool Gaming and on podcast services around the globe. So for Garrett Bland, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been the nicest level of the RPG Cave, aka the 69th level of the RPG Cave. And we're out.
Bye-bye.